Hello, I'm Dr. Keith Nelson, sometimes known as the Nature Creativity Guy, sometimes known as the Breakthrough Guy. I'd like to share a new series with you. It's about rethinking humans, about rethinking important phenomena that are kind of puzzling. Rethinking just, really curious kinds of things that might seem like we understand, but when we look closer, we rethink them. We see there's a lot that we didn't understand. Today we're going to talk about children's art. And we're going to go through a few slides. And I'm going to give you a chance to look at them, just a whole series first, a short series. And then we're going to come back and revisit them and talk about them. What I'd like you to do is to just think, children created each of these images. Why are they so different? Why are the images so different in their style and in their sophistication? Why would that be? Here we go. We're just going to move along one slide at a time. Kind of a nice simple drawing. Something a lot more complicated. Much more complicated and much more colorful, of course, as well. Here's another one. Also, these are drawings of people. They're found all around the world like this, in young children around 3 and 4 and 5, often at 6. Not just real tiny children. Here's another really colorful production. It's not just a drawing. It's a piece of sculpture, three-dimensional sculpture. Very lively, I would say. Who do you think might have created that? Some kind of child somewhere. Here's a very different style, a very different content. Got quite a bit of sophistication in color and form and arrangement. Who could have done this? Why is it so different from what other children are doing, just in this little sample that we're looking at together today? Here's another pretty complicated piece of art in which obviously there are two monkeys and their positioning is very clear in space. They're positioning in relation to each other like a couple of dancers. Who could have done this? I doubt for a 3 or 4-year-old that you very often encountered in your own life someone that you know who's making this kind of art. Here's another fairly simple drawing that has some emotional expression, has some positioning in space. Go back to these drawings of people. Now, why in the world would a 4-year-old anywhere in the world make drawings like this and say, this is my drawing of a person? Sometimes they'll say, this is my drawing of myself. This is a drawing of my parent. They obviously are not seeing the world this way. They know people don't really look like this, right? We've never seen a person in real life, in our living room, on our playground, who looks like this. So what's holding children back? Now we come to a lot of myths and limited beliefs about what's going on in children's art. Many people at many times, including art educators, psychologists, developmental psychologists, who at times believe that children just at 3 and 4 wouldn't have the perceptual abilities. Maybe they don't see what we see in the world. Or maybe they just don't have the eye-hand coordination, the sophistication of movement. Maybe that's what's holding them back. But something is certainly holding them back from making any kind of art that is highly realistic and complex, that portrays what a person looks like, let alone a person in three-dimensional space and in some kind of movement. Okay, again, a reminder, there's going to be a series of these podcasts that deal all the way through evolution into speculations about the future, about business, about nature and saving nature, about creating social organizations that really accomplish something, science. How does science progress? What do we need to rethink about how breakthroughs are made in science or in any other kind of field? So today we'll keep it kind of brief. We'll leave it a mystery at many points, and in later podcasts we'll try to bring to light all the things that we now know that allow us to draw some very different conclusions to what most people had said about children's art, about what they're capable of. When we see this really limited kind of stick figure, two legs probably stuck on a head circle, which is also a body circle, with a couple of circles for the eye, and a curved line for what we see as a mouth. Now, again, this is just a crazy piece of art if it's meant to show what the child's mind is seeing when they look at a person or when they look at themselves in the mirror. That's not what's going on. Now, the contrast between these really simple kinds of stick figures or other, pasted together simple schemas, just a few different kinds of lines and geometric forms stuck together, a kind of a simple collage that makes a kind of a portrayal of a person, versus someone who really does already at 3 make quite complicated art. The most common interpretation of those more advanced pieces of art, like this one, is that this child must be some kind of very specially built, a child with innate gift, innate capacity to create art. And that the reason that we see this kind of art is because this child has been living in the world and experimenting a little bit, but mainly because their brain is different. They're a genius child. They have that kind of brain. This child has a different kind of brain. That's the idea. Now, there's certainly remarkable capacities in some children and some adults. It's certainly the case that we're not all built the same way when it comes to music or dance or art or running fast or jumping over hurdles or doing somersaults. Of course, some of us are tuned somewhat differently, but I'm going to propose to you that when we put all the clues from everywhere in history and everywhere in every culture that we know about, it's possible that that idea about exceptional art resting usually on a truly exceptional genius brain is probably wrong. Now, think about this as we go through some of these other pieces of art that are a little bit different. And again, looking ahead to new podcasts about this, think about what would be circumstances that would be wildly different for kids who made a particular piece of art versus that their brain is wildly different. What are the possibilities for wildly different circumstances that would lead to wildly different and sometimes quite advanced art, even when kids are 3 and 4 and 5 years of age? Again, we visit this one. So much movement, so much expression, such complex arrangement. Reminder of the contrast to these stick-like figures with just a few components. Something that's very lively and is using clay and color and complex arrangements of the different parts of the body. In this one, it looks like a funeral scene. And there's sadness. And there's a different style of painting that might reflect some kinds of different experience in the homes or schools or playgrounds or public buildings for children who've made this kind of really complex, interesting art. Again, a kind of acrobatic dancer-like monkeys. Quite striking, really, for someone who's only 4 or 5 years of age. Something here that's not quite so limited. We could say primitive compared with a truly skilled adult artist with a full toolkit who could create many, many different kinds of beautiful and engaging and complex art that fascinate us and strike us emotionally and make us think. This is a kind of art that's very limited compared with that. And for a preschool child, we know that they don't really see other people or themselves as closely resembling this, really simple kind of portrayal of a girl. Okay, we'll just stop again with those stick figures. Let your mind rethink what the world could be going on. What in the heck could be going on? That a child in modern times, and these are the ones I'm showing you, are from the United States in very modern times. And these kids, when they make these kinds of art at 3, 4, 5, and 6 years of age, they've seen hundreds of thousands or more likely millions of quite sophisticated, complex art in movies, on their computer screens, in all kinds of public buildings, in all kinds of places, in all kinds of books. Massive exposure. Compare that to what children must have been exposed to 100,000 years ago. Nothing like that. So think about what's really going on that would lead children to create this kind of art despite the modern richness of the graphics and movies and pictures of all kinds that they encounter. Thanks a lot. Again, this is Keith Nelson, and like doing these kinds of podcasts. I also write books on Amazon that have titles like Breakthroughs and Creative Breakthroughs and Bobcat Magic. You might, encounter some interesting rethinking kinds of stories about all kinds of areas of people's life there if you would like to. Thanks for listening today. Bye-bye for now.